Good morning. Let's start by singing together.
Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Welcome, everyone, here to First Unitarian Church. We are a multi-generational community where we grow, where we strive to make a place for each to grow spiritually and together to build a beloved community. After the service, please join fellow congregants for a social hour. To join virtually, you'll see a QR code after the service. And to join in person, find your way down to Fuller Hall, which is just below this sanctuary. And today in Fuller Hall, it's your last day to buy a pumpkin to support our immigrant justice work as well as our youth programs. And this is a busy season in our church. You can learn more about the many things happening through our church website and through our weekly e-news. There's still time to get involved in our UU the Vote effort. You can write letters and make phone calls. This Tuesday evening, there will be a Voting Our Values forum to learn about the many ballot measures coming before us in the upcoming election. And yes, the holiday season must be around the corner since the Alliance Green Sale will begin taking online orders today. And finally, today is the start of our season of giving here at the church. This is when we come together as a community to make our financial commitments to keep this congregation healthy and thriving. Reverend Alison will be saying more about that later in the service, but now I'd be pleased to welcome Marilyn Mays, a member of our Board of Trustees, to talk about why she supports this congregation in her own giving. Marilyn.
Good morning. I am Marilyn Mays, and I've been part of this church since 2001. And when I first came, I sat way up there in the balcony all by myself for a couple of years trying to figure out what was in my head and how to get by. You remember the fall of 2001 was a pretty hard time in many, many ways. I'm an Oregonian. I was born and raised in Hood River in the Gorge. There are many things I didn't know as a kid growing up. My friends were many Japanese, and I don't think they knew either what had happened in our valley before. I felt safe here in this church, and I was challenged at the same time. It's kind of a funny duality. I became an RE teacher. It took a couple of years to get there, and I loved the first and second grade and the stories they told and the things that happened when we did kind of semi-religious things, and they would go, well, what is that? What's the baby there for? Well, so it was great. I joined the then non-auditioned choir. We were Chalice back in those days. And I began to take classes and workshops, lots of them, around Buddhism, lots of other things. And I began to understand where I come from. The social justice community and the adult ed both helped me make sense of some really difficult truths in my own upbringing and my own life. And I began to understand that behind that beauty, probably one of the most beautiful places in the world where I lived as a child, a lot of really awful things happened. A lot of really awful things happened here in Portland around race. So I am most thankful for our work around the eighth principle. So over the past few years, I've really pushed limits and expanded my perspective. I did pandemic singing too in the virtual choir. For those of you who were part of that, holy smokes, I could hear my voice and went, oh my gosh, I'm so flat. Classes and learning circles. I've been in learning circles with people from outside of the state, not outside of the country yet. I don't think they've expanded that far, but I love them. I love that opportunity to see the world differently. I served on the Music Council when Duro first came. Great learning experience in many ways. I've been in many small groups, some that still exist, a little meditation group that's been meeting for years, and they welcomed me a few years back. I've been doing UU the Vote. We did UU the Vote thing several years ago, and think that the reason so many great folks won in Georgia is because we did letters. So I'm very thankful to do that again, and I think we're going to try and encourage a couple of our grown kids to do those with us. I serve on the Board of Trustees these days. I was a volunteer at the UU General Assembly, and this year I joined the Alliance because I'm thankful for the work they do. I'm committed to the work and the community of this church. Some of my very best friends sing in choir with me, or some of them in this choir even. I sing in Grace these days. I'm thankful for the challenges, the learning opportunities, and the support of my friends, and the challenges that come up in conversations sometimes where you just go, I guess I do have to think differently. I give back as generously as I am able. That changes from time to time. Life gets more difficult or easier. And I also give back my time and my mind to this church. I like the old saying that many hands make light work. I checked to make sure it was appropriate this morning. And it is. It's from the 16th century or thereabouts. So please consider being a part of all the wonderful work here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marilyn. And in celebration of the community we have here, let's take a time now to greet our neighbors online and here in person. Let's greet one another. Marilyn Mays is going to be lighting our chalice today as well. If you have a chalice at home or a candle, I invite you to light it now. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
There is a trial that love can bring me The words of our call to worship this morning are by James Villa Blake, a covenant and a set of commitments that are recited by Unitarian Universalists across the country, whether every Sunday or occasionally. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Will you join in singing our next song, Let This Be a House of Peace? Blessed are those by John Burens. Blessed are those who yearn for deepening more than escape, who are not afraid to grow in spirit.
Blessed are those who take seriously the bonds of community, who regularly join in celebration and learning, who come as much to minister as to be ministered unto.
Blessed are those who bring their children, who invite their friends to come along, to join in fellowship, service, learning, and growth. Blessed are those who speak their minds in meetings, who can take and give criticism, who keep alive their sense of humor.
Blessed are those who know that the work of the church is the transformation of society, who have a vision of love and community, transcending the present, and who do not shrink from controversy, sacrifice, or change.
Blessed are they indeed. And I'll just mention, I think there was one paragraph that might have been missed, and I want to make sure to share it. Blessed are those who support the church and its work by their regular, sustained, and generous giving, and who give of themselves no less than their money. So I thought, whoops, that was not a good one to skip. And with that, let us turn our hearts inward and outward as we sing our doxology. This weekend, we are glad and grateful to be launching our season of giving, or the Rooted and Ready campaign for 2023. We are glad because we know that our ministries make a difference in the lives of so many children, youth, and adults of all ages who participate in person, online, or both. We are glad because we know that what we do here matters and that our values and actions ripple out, impacting the people of our city, around our country, and our Unitarian Universalist Association. We are grateful because you are a part of the collective we who makes all of this possible. It is the gifts of time, talent, and treasure that we offer one another that add up to the ministries of worship and music, learning and advocacy, caring, and community building. These ministries come into existence because of you, our members and friends, because you in this room and online are generous with your resources according to your ability to give. So if you are brand new today, welcome. Consider this a chance to learn about how pledging works here, and there is no pressure to give at this point. And when and if you are ready, we of course would love your support, for we believe wholeheartedly in this place. And to everyone, whether it is a short or a long while that you've been here, please fill out your pledge packet in the coming weeks. And if you don't receive a packet at home, you can pick up one here starting on next week, or you can go on our website and fill it out online. What is pledging? Some have asked. The members and friends of our congregation share financial gifts to support the mission and ministries of our congregation throughout the year. A pledge is an amount that you plan to give between January 2023 and December 2023. And while a pledge is a promise, we recognize that circumstances may change. If anything changes in your financial circumstances, just communicate with us and let us know if your pledge needs to change. We use these pledged amounts to set our budget. This impacts staffing, programming, and more. Our pledge goal for 2023 is $1.6 million. Now, last year we had about 800 pledges, so that means about $2,000 as an average pledge. However, this is a socioeconomically diverse community, so we reach that total by everyone giving generously according to their ability. When I first started pledging to my congregation as a college freshman, I had far less capacity than I do today, but I gave with no less of a full heart. You'll find guidance around giving levels in the pledge packet, and as always, what you decide to give is your decision. I would say give until it feels good, and thank you for doing that. If you participate in our congregation in person or online and you haven't given before, please join the 2023 campaign. If you aren't ready to commit to a pledge, you'll have another opportunity to give during this season of Giving Month. You can make a one-time gift during this month between now and November 13th, and it will go towards the 2023 fund. If you have pledged before, we ask that you consider an increase, if it is possible, at a time when our community is needed more than ever. In all cases, and I have this wonderful slide to show you what I'm talking about, we request that you consider checking the sustainer box on your pledge form to let us know that you want to be among the people we can count on year after year. When we can count on your pledge, we're able to proactively plan for the future with it in mind. And as you can see from the slide, because of the generosity of our sustainers, we already know that we are over halfway towards our goal. Yes. Our sustainers put us over 900,000. However, we still need 700,000. And of course, we don't know which of the sustainers may be able to go up, will stay the same, or may have to go down. So please do fill out the form by November 13th, and then definitely come and celebrate on Celebration Sunday. Celebrate the generous pledges, and I hope you do feel good about it. Your full-hearted gift will allow us to build upon the strong roots of our community and help us to be ready for what comes next.
Thank you, Alison. Our generosity happens in many ways in this congregation, including each week when we invite our giving and share it with a community organization that's in concert with our own mission. For this church year, we're dedicating our monthly offerings to organizations led by youth and/or committed to the development of youth leadership. In October, we're sharing our plate with ELSO, Experience Life Science Outdoors. ELSO's mission is to teach and frame science, technology, engineering, arts, and math as well as nature-based education through a lens that centers and elevates the stories, ways of knowing, individual needs, and lived experiences of Black and brown communities. If you'd like to give an offering today, you can, and you're watching online, you can look for the QR code shortly and find the donate button on Boxcast. And if you're here in person, you can find the QR code in a yellow slip that should be in a chair around you, or you can give cash, a donation of cash or check to an usher after the service. Thank you for the many ways your generosity supports this congregation. We make space in our service each week to name the concerns of our community life. We are a caring community, and pastoral support happens through our ministers and our lay ministers. That care includes the prayers of the congregation throughout the week. If you are here in person and you light a candle in one of our side galleries, you'll see them lit in both of the galleries. And you can also write down a prayer intention. And online, you can send an intention to prayer at firstunitarianportland.org. 2 weeks from today, on October 30th, we will have our annual All Souls service, which will include a litany of those in our community who have died in the last year. If you'd like to include the name of a member or of an immediate loved one in that service, please send the name and, if it would be helpful, pronunciation tips to remembrance@firstunitarianportland.org. The deadline for that is October 25th, and you'll also see a link in the church e-news. The flowers in the tall vases in front of us today are from the memorial held yesterday for member Donna Richards. Donna died on August 16th at the age of 74 and was especially involved in our community for hunger and houselessness here at the church. Pat Wallace had back surgery this week, and the surgery was successful, but Pat's recovery has been more difficult than expected, and he needed to return to the hospital late this week. He appreciates our continued prayers for healing. And a joy this morning, Nick Harrington, who has served as one of our sextons for many years here, married Lee Milligan in a ceremony in Astoria on Friday evening. We wish them much happiness together. Will you join me now in prayer? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and of no name, hear our prayers this day. Those spoken and all the intentions we name here in the silence of our hearts. We come, Spirit, once again in gratitude for our lives, for this community of which we are a part, for the commitments that bring us together as we work towards building a community we call beloved. In the midst of turbulent times, help us to find our grounding, Spirit. Help us to use our gifts well. May our commitments help us to live lives of integrity, lives of peace, lives of love. And as we strive toward wholeness, may we help the world be a little more whole, a little more just, a little more peaceful, a little more loving. And remind us, Spirit, that we do not make this journey alone. Bless us on this day and in all our days. Amen. Let's take a few moments now to be together in silence. Let's remain seated as we sing together, "Create in me a clean heart."
Create
Our reading today is by the theologian Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free.
I don't know how you all stay so still in your seats, although I see some of you dancing a little. I know I struggle, and I don't apologize for it. I'm sold out, and I feel the Spirit moving. So thank you to our wonderful bell choir today and our wonderful singing choir. Thank you, thank you. My experience of the divine is a presence that moves through the hearts, minds, hands, and souls of human beings. It is that which is greater than all of us, and yet present in each one of us. God is the love which transcends the boundaries of our individual lives and knits us together in one human family, rooted in relationship. Nay, it is the love which reaches even beyond that, which beckons us into seeing our place in the context of the greater whole, in the context of all life on earth, in the context of the cosmos. While I don't believe in a personified entity looking down upon us, intervening in our lives, God has had a human face. While some might say, "There but for the grace of God go I also would use the phrase, "There but for the grace, generosity, and kindness of humans go I." In both statements, I recognize that I am dependent and interdependent on so many people, things, or events which are out of my control. It is a recognition that I am here in part because of cherished moments of grace or generosity that I could never repay, and only hope that I can do the same for others. When we speak of moments of grace, we often mean those intervals in our lives when something completely surprising happens, a coincidence of fate, or an intentional act on the part of another that made a critical difference for us. This morning, I would like to focus on the meaning of those intentional actions, those intentional gifts we have given away freely and at times with some risk to our own well-being, and the way in which our lives would in fact be meaningless without these. These are the moments which help us to tap into the part of our hearts that might be worthy of the name divine, and yet they also allow us to live more fully into our humanity. If, as human beings, we are dependent and interdependent on the grace, generosity, and kindness of others, then others are also dependent and interdependent on the grace, generosity, and kindness that we offer. There exists, in some sense, invisible strings that attach each of us to one another. Unitarian Universalists call this the interdependent web of all existence, and it goes well beyond the human community. Here we have an example of attachments in a positive sense, the ones that are life-giving rather than the opposite. I think sometimes in our culture, influenced by Buddhist philosophy, we spend quite a bit of time reflecting on attachments that are negative, the ones that we must learn to let go of. And today is an invitation to dwell on the attachments that we should seek in a meaningful life. The following illustration might help. A man walking through Central Park, and the importance of that is the water you're about to hear is likely polluted. A man walking through Central Park on his way to work in his new pressed Brioni suit, that's a very expensive Italian suit, notices a small child flailing about in the boat pond. Now, no one is around, and it's clear that this child might drown. Without pause, he leaps into the pond and pulls that child to safety with no thought of what might happen to him, with no thought of that new suit, and with no thought of what unpleasant result is likely to happen from swimming in less than pristine water. Saving a child's life is an attachment well worth the cost of a Brioni suit and possibly even his health. Throughout our lives, we are faced with such choices, although many are not as obvious as that one. The truth is that many of us have had the experience of choosing our quote-unquote suits or our favorite leisure outfit or sneakers, whatever it is that we do, over the greater good. Maybe we don't see the child drowning. Maybe we don't see that what we have is needed to help. A more difficult scenario comes about when I must choose between whether or not to buy a new article of clothing or to give that same dollar amount away to an organization that helps children, gives them access to health care, education, or nourishing food. My point this morning is not to suggest that purchasing clothing is a negative thing, only to bring into sharp relief that we are choosing what to attach ourselves to all of the time. How we spend our hard-earned or inherited dollars is one sign of this, and how we spend our time is another. I have found that communities like First Unitarian Portland help me to be more discerning about when what I possess might be of service to another, when what I possess might even be healing or possibly saving. First Unitarian Portland was started and exists all the way up until today because our founders and each succeeding generation has not been content to simply live for themselves. They have attached themselves to the well-being of this community and the world beyond. In the earlier days, ministers such as the Reverend Thomas Lamb Elliott here at First Unitarian and the Reverend James Corby at the Universalist Church of the Good Tidings on the East Side used the language of moving towards a universal brotherhood, which later expanded to a vision of working collectively for the beloved community. When we point to our founders, two lay leaders spring forth from our history, Sarah Barrage and Mary Fraser. They were attending the first Congregational Church here in Portland, but they felt a calling to co-create a Unitarian community. In the early 1860s, before we came into existence, there was only one Unitarian church on the West Coast in San Francisco. Now, even in New England, many Unitarians were part of Congregationalist communities like Sarah and Mary, and making do with what they felt to be outmoded and even dangerous doctrine. Sarah and Mary felt a calling, and yet committing to that call in a place where no other public Unitarians existed was no small leap of faith. They might have been ostracized. It could have impacted their family's financial position, and it meant risking failure. But commit they did, with a little push from the minister at the church they attended, the Reverend George Atkinson, who decided in 1865 to preach a series of sermons condemning the heresies of the liberal church. Read Unitarians, Universalists, and the like. The Unitarians' belief that Jesus is a moral exemplar but not part of God was and is still considered blasphemy in many churches. The Universalist belief in a loving God that wouldn't torment souls in hell for eternity for finite mistakes that we make on earth was and is blasphemy too, according to Christian orthodoxy. But in their conscience, Sarah and Mary held a commitment to what they believed to be true and were willing to work for it and sacrifice for it, no matter the consequence. Sarah and Mary met with 5 other women and formed the Ladies' Sewing Society to earn money and to give it away for the purpose of founding a new liberal church. The first thing they bought was a communion set, $30 in about 1865, 66, which, by the way, it's a lot more expensive today. They raised money for the minister's salary and for land and a building. This was a deep commitment of their time, their talent, their treasure. The possibility of being shunned and excluded is much more evident in the history of the First Universalist Church, which was founded and supported by members of our congregation, as well as our minister and other people. They are our spiritual ancestors here in Portland as we became a Unitarian Universalist congregation after the merger of our 2 faiths, and not too long after the permanent closing of that separate Universalist church. The Universalist Church was planted on the east side at the recommendation of Thomas Lamb Eliot in 1892 between the efforts of Reverend Q.H. Shin and, once again, a ladies' aid. A women's circle is the tour de force behind the founding. While the Universalist Church of the Good Tidings did experience success to a point, they struggled mightily. They never received the welcome that First Unitarian ultimately did receive. A major difference between the 2 churches, especially in their beginnings, was class. First Unitarian served an educated middle and upper class community, and the First Universalist served a working class and lower class community. Their first 17 years saw quite a bit of turbulence, and they had 6 or 7 ministerial transitions. It wasn't until after the Reverend James Corby's arrival that they enjoyed a period of steady leadership growth and development. Reverend Corby shifted the focus from just defending themselves to engaging in the needs of the people in their neighborhood. He wanted them to turn the congregation's gaze away from simply whether everyone was going to heaven to whether or not we were creating hell on earth right here in Portland, and to go about the business of eradicating it. Today, I lift up the commitment of the women who were the backbone of that church during the early years, who organized programming for children and adults in the absence of ministerial leadership, as well as the congregation's growing commitment to the plight of the working poor and to putting their theology into practical action. We are the inheritors of these traditions in Portland, Unitarian and Universalist here and across the river. As Unitarians, we affirm the human capacity for goodness. As Universalists, we affirm a spirit of love that excludes no one. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm our interdependence with the global human family, and we work collectively to realize a vision of the beloved community. As Unitarian Universalists in 2022, in a hot, dry October, in the middle of a climate crisis, we also affirm our interdependence with all life on this planet. Throughout our history, we have been willing to serve, to commit ourselves, and to sacrifice for the presence of Unitarian Universalism here in Portland and in cities and towns and online everywhere. We have done this not simply to espouse our healing theologies and values amongst those who are already present, but for the adult visitors and the children of tomorrow. We have done this not just for ourselves, but because these healing theologies and values have compelled us to serve, commit, and sacrifice beyond the confines of our congregations with partners who also long for the beloved community, and yes, to create together glimpses of heaven on earth. We are the Church of the Open Door and Open Heart, who welcomed in the conversation about death with dignity and choices in dying at a time when other congregations shut the door on that. This is still a heresy in some churches, and I have experience working with congregants to remove them from hospitals that would not honor their wishes. We are the Church of the Open Door and Open Heart, who welcomed outside in at a time when others shut the doors on them. And when there was an abominable anti-homosexuality Measure 9 on the ballot for the November elections 30 years ago, we joined with outside in by wrapping our block in red ribbon to claim a safe and sacred space for and with and as a community that includes LGBTQIA2S+, children, youth, and adults of every age. This is still heresy in some churches, and these are but a few examples from our history. How shall we serve, commit, and sacrifice to co-create a community with healing theologies and values that will reshape the landscape of Portland and beyond in the direction of love today? Well, right now, today, following this service, and again next Sunday, you can engage in UU the Vote and help us to get out the vote with a focus on underrepresented voters, specifically Black voters in North Carolina. Pick up letters to mail and help us surpass 10,000 people. And I'll just name something I'm learning about now. Let's also not just move against things, but create legislation. There are people in our congregation who are joining with efforts, creating a bill that is moving through Oregon to eradicate the terrible practice of conversion therapy. More than don't say gay, now it is how can we turn into people and convert them out of being gay? That must be stopped. There's an opportunity for us to engage, and we'll be sharing more about that. We can't just respond to others. We need to be the authors of legislation that is liberating. Well, right now, this week, you can also open your pledge packet and reflect on the value of things like a space for religious pluralism, for people who follow multiple paths, for skeptics and believers, for meaning making and making a difference, for relationships across generations and other divides, for a church that doesn't give all the answers or say the path is clear, but invites us to move towards the beloved community in spite of not knowing the full way yet. As you choose the amount that feels right to you, I want to invite you to listening and reflecting on these three types of giving as described by Robert Rodenmayer. There is grudge giving, which sounds like, I hate to, but there is duty giving, I ought to. That's better. And then there is thanksgiving, I want to. Grudge giving in a congregation might look something like this. Well, I had 2 hours of entertainment on a Sunday. How many Sundays did I go? What's the cost of a movie? Duty giving is the folks here who might look at the sum total of our budget and divide it up by the number of members and decide what they can pledge. Thanksgiving looks like I believe passionately in what First Unitarian is doing right here and online and in the world. I want us to grow and thrive and continue to be a vital force for those on the spiritual quest who value religious freedom, love in action, and the journey towards liberation. I will pledge with a spirit of generosity and share with this community in proportion to my bounty. And for those who might resonate with the Barrage and Fraser families, after all, we are their spiritual descendants, and their efforts to counter the Reverend Atkinson condemning Unitarians and Universalists, I'll also mention this still happens today. There are a lot of Orthodox congregations condemning us right now. Currently, religious conservatives are proportionately more generous givers. And that is one reason that they have an outsized impact on the narrative around religious morals. Let's not cede that territory. Let us take our vision seriously enough to fund it well so we can share it and work for it, not for ourselves alone, but for our children, for our neighbors, for our city, and for a future with religious liberals in it. We exist because of your generosity. And if you ever wonder if that's true, you could go get a beer in the building where the former Universalist church once stood. Yes, you are a part of the we who helps to co-create all of this that so many of us have thrown our lives and full hearts into co-creating into the future. So let us pray. May our roots be nourished and grow deeper, and may we be poised and ready to be changed by love. Amen. And now in our going, may love bless us and keep us. May it shine down upon us. May it radiate out from within us. may it be gracious unto us, and may it make of all here peace builders. For this is the day that you and I are given, so let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love and the movement towards liberation. Amen, and blessed be, and may it be so, friends.